Now, more often than not, when a series or movie franchise reaches its inevitable conclusion, you ultimately want to achieve a few things. The first of which is to bring everything back in some form or another from previous entries to hit on those nostalgic sweet spots and drudge up the feels once more. Secondly, you want to stick the landing that so many shows fail to do these days, where it rewards the viewers for their time, energy, and support, and by the credits sends them home happy with the result of a several-year journey. And thirdly, you want to offer an energetic conclusion that follows the logic established before and feels earned, brutal, considerate, fierce, and understanding of the ending that it receives based on the actions written throughout and the arcs that our characters have undergone.
Did I stutter?
And while I currently can't speak as to whether or not this will be everything I just outlined with a cathartic ending and resolution for all, I can confirm one thing, and that is that season 1 and 2 were on point and have set us up beautifully for a steady but moving start from the final installment of the Bad Batch.
Gentlemen, it's been an honor playing with you tonight.
That's right folks, the day has arrived with a whopping 3-episode premiere, meaning we have a lot to unpack, so let's not waste any time around it and jump straight into episode 1. We open with a brief montage of events from season 2 to remind us of how fucked everything is, and then we move into the current day set 3 weeks after the conclusion of last season. No. Where we see a squad of TKs crash down on the planet of Wayland due to the weather conditions but are left to die by Dr. Hemlock realising that the creatures of this world have taken them already.
You dick!
And the next day we catch up with Omega, resisting the reality that she's in right now where she is forced to take on the role of assistant once again with Dr. Emerie Carr, in the efforts to provide Palpatine with what it is he's looking for.
Once more, the Sith will rule the galaxy.
And from today, Omega is now forced to donate blood for the testing of M-count combinations with cloning too, which gives us the confirmation we never needed, as the writing was on the wall with this one, but it's nice to know that we're not wrong on this either.
I knew it.
And after some back and forth between Emerie and Omega, the young lass is instructed to take the vials of blood down to Nala Se for testing, where Omega finds out what we knew, except Nala takes her sample and destroys it without ever explaining to her why. But shortly after this, we see that Omega has already got a pattern with her day, where after working with Nala, she heads down to a pen full of lurkers that are used as tracking hounds on Wayland. And we see that out of the pack, Omega has begun making a connection with a female lurker she's named Batcher.
Are you crying? Am I crying? No, I'm not crying. You're crying.
Who, while initially hesitant of Omega, she accepts food from her and we move on. To see that Omega sneaks down below decks to talk with Crosshair, who is equally resistant to Omega and tells her to basically piss off, but she promises to never give up on him and that one day they will escape. And we wrap up on the first day with her here by witnessing her make a new Lula doll out of the hay she's been taking from Batcher's pen as a way to still make her feel close to her brothers. But the shock soon sets in when we cut to 5 months later and Omega has visibly aged and has become more integrated with the practice of Emerie and the science division, barely even noticing Crosshair in the halls and not even flinching at the blood being taken from her.
Fuck.
However, just when we think things have changed too much for her, we see that she is still in there when she notices Batcher has a cut on her leg. And after asking for aid from the caretaker droid, he states that if she does not recover, she will be put down. Refusing to accept that though, she places some skin glue on her leg to help her heal and heads off to visit Crosshair once again, where he tells her to just leave him be and states that he wouldn't think twice about leaving her if he could escape himself, which she rejects, believing that he's not like that anymore and promises to find a way out. The next day though, we see an inspection conducted in Omega's room where Emerie discovers the Lula doll that she had been making and says that they are forbidden from having any personal items, whilst at the same time Dr. Hemlock grows frustrated with Nala Se over the lack of progress that they've made with the Emperor's demands, and promises that if they don't start to achieve something, he'll go after Omega. And finally, Omega discovers that Batcher is set for termination after she has become more domesticated due to Omega's actions. But Omega fights back and frees Batcher, only to be discovered by Dr. Hemlock, who questions her reasoning for this and states that if she continues to be disobedient, Crosshair will feel the effects of his punishments. And our final visual is Emerie returning the Lula doll to Omega in an effort to comfort the child after seeing her in visible distress. And so it's a bitter day indeed, my friends, as while we finally set about completing the journey for our Batchers and Omega, this equally signifies the beginning of the end as we set off on the path to a glorious sunset, where we get to bear witness to the potential threats that the clones have to endure to survive, and in the end sign off with a possible loss from one, if not all of our defective dads for the greater good. But I'm certain as the weeks go by, we'll become more bogged down in the reality of mortality itself and unpack the despicable acts that Hemlock and co are committing upon our boys, but for now, I want to savour the time remaining with our beloved clones, both men and women alike now, as they have been part of the backbone to Star Wars for years now, and as it turns out, in bigger ways than we ever thought.
You're goddamn right.
Now, I'll keep this as brief as I possibly can, given I've got 2 more episodes to cover after this, but the biggest revelation from this episode was undoubtedly the confirmation of Dr. Hemlock's efforts on Mount Tantiss being that of discovering the potential for combining M counts with cloning.
Holy shit.
In an effort to provide Darth Sidious with another body for his essence to combine with at a later date, which we see the results of in Rise of Skywalker.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you. I double dare you, motherfucker. Say what one more goddamn time.
This is Lucasfilm's latest attempt at trying to connect the dots to the wider universe of Star Wars and clean up the disasters that those movies were. But while my feelings on those films aren't the kindest, I can appreciate the efforts that are being made here to provide the links to the Empire's plans, as well as a possible reason for its inception, aside from governing the galaxy and monopolizing assets, and really establishing the reason that Palpatine became so involved in cloning by that point to begin with.
It all makes sense now.
However, based on what we see then compared to now, something must happen in this season for things to be as they are then and as we see in The Mandalorian. Because if my memory is correct, when we see our Palpatine clone in episode 9, it's in the ruins of Exegol with barely enough technology to keep the work going or electricity to keep the lights on, which right now would tell me that this series has to bring Mount Tantiss down to the ground and in doing so keeps what is discovered out of the hands of Palpatine. Otherwise, we'd have an explanation that worked when initially being offered this.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Alrighty then.
But to the show's credit, it's given us a reason for how that return came to be by adding logic and a path toward Episode 9's creative reasoning. There are still many questions about how Palps would transfer his consciousness over and such, but this makes me feel a little more comfortable with such a lazily written line from the future. One of the biggest achievements of this show is how expansive it's become in adding layers of meaning and depth to future events, whilst generously and lovingly honouring what came before, which is a testament to the strength that this show's writing team possesses, where they're able to find imaginative but logical explanations for how certain things came to be, like Palps' existence in the future stemming from the works on the likes of clones, Zillobeast, and possibly Lurkerhounds, though that last one may just be a theory. But as it is currently, I'm cool with this show delivering on the somehow Palpatine returned line because it ties in directly with what we're seeing when it comes to the future of the clones and the Empire's prejudicial treatment of them, feeling that they're nothing more than just blood sacks free for Hemlock to exploit as and when he wishes now, with no doubt more horrific experimentations unfolding deeper in the mountain. Moving on though, Omega's moment with Batcher was an interesting one for me, as it offers us a moment to explore her thinking and how she sees a degree of crossover between Batcher and Crosshair, another being who's a caged animal outside but incredibly loyal if he can be broken through to on the inside. Batcher in a way is a parallel to the Bad Batch themselves, where they were dogs of war before, who in Crosshair's case was only kept around because of his abilities, but with a developing tremor in his hands, stripping him of that unique quality he was engineered to possess, the Empire has found him redundant and now only wish to siphon off what's left of him, just as they were going to do with Batcher if she couldn't recover from her injuries. She's another tool for the Empire that serves her purpose, but when there's no promise of something to exploit from her anymore, that's it, they simply want to terminate her. It's another fascinating insight into how Omega perceives life, where she can split Batcher off from the rest of the pack though and try to work with her alone. She manages to create a synergistic relationship that eventually blossoms into a companionship, just like she's tried to do with Crosshair from the beginning of Season 1 when things fell apart, and we've finally seen come to fruition here. But equally fascinating as well is we get a richer insight into how the Empire perceives the clones and anyone or anything under its thumb. There's been moments in Star Wars where the creators have tried to add a degree of empathy to the various cogs in the machine, but the Bad Batch as a series is not afraid to shine that spotlight onto the unempathetic, ceaseless, unwavering brutality of those in charge. As far as individuals like Hemlock and Tarkin are concerned, you're only here so long as you provide. Beyond that, you're simply another pile of bones to be trodden over as they continue to march across the galaxy. And while we're on the topic of Omega, her attempts at recreating Lula with the straw from Batcher's pen was a soft reminder for us and everyone around that for however intelligent, creative and adaptable she may be, she is still just a child. But to see Emerie recognise that after some time with her was a shift in the right direction for her relationship with Omega too. And seeing how this feeds into Emerie's character development after she recognises this is something that the young girl would need is extremely effective writing and a step in the right direction for her. However, she is still a wildcard in her own right that I'd love to gather some understanding on, as I can't figure out if she's just a high IQ, low EQ individual, or if she was engineered to be that way and gradually Omega's empathy and emotional processing is taking some effect on her. Time will tell, but I'm wondering if part of Hemlock's experiments on Tantis was to modify the female clones with structural cognition, making them as unquestioning and as unwavering in support as they currently seem. But going back to our old boy Crosshair though, it was nice to see him in the opening for this season, as it took 2 episodes to even get to him last time, and after that appearance, it took a further 9 fucking episodes to return to his story.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
But thankfully this time starts us off right by bringing us back to the very 2 at the heart of the story right now, and the crux for Hunter and Wrecker's mission next episode and the focus of episode 3 soon to come. The visual despair and uneasiness in Crosshair was possibly my favourite part to his character here, as it shows those walls weakening enough for Omega to be able to reach him. His relationship with Omega, I believe, will be the heart of the season and the driving force to bring him and his brothers back together once more. But alongside that, I think Crosshair could become the linchpin for resistance against the Empire from the perspective of the clones. Given he's used and abused next to the abundance of regs who before separated themselves from the likes of 99s and are now just as defective in the minds of the Empire, making everyone the same in this scenario and given a balanced reason for uniting between them. This is again only my speculation on events, but to have Crosshair go from being this devout follower of the imperialistic ways to this symbol of rebellion would be a fitting way to complete his arc, as this begrudging hero who rides the line of anti-hero but is able to fulfill the clones' true objective now: look out for one another and survive. It's deep dives like this into the mind of someone like Crosshair that truly makes the show worth watching. Among the other 99 reasons for why the show is great as well, but our sly-tongued marksman has become pretty much everyone's favourite at this point, and is the one member of the batch that I want to receive a definitive ending for. But going back briefly to a point I touched on earlier, and my last point for this video I believe, was the reveal of the female clones just existing in the background this whole time. It shouldn't come as a surprise given we already had Omega and Emerie, but those 2 felt like they were designed as genuine attempts to test and stretch the Jango Fett gene sample, not become something to delve into at such a scale. But what this proves though is how vast the Kaminoans' experiments truly were, to even find the reason to create a division of structurally minded women working under the Kaminoan directive.
I see your point.
What these women have been doing though is possibly my biggest curiosity surrounding them now, as they've been around clearly for some time based on the age of Emerie and a few others I was able to spot in the episode, and even with the accelerated aging involved they would still be a few years old, so Nalase and her science division have been pretty fucking busy indeed. Having Emerie was compelling enough, but no, there's a whole fucking mountain of them now. But I'll be interested to see where we go next with the story and see how the female clones could play into the clone resistance. But to close out, I thought the visual imagery in this episode was brilliant, with a lot of the framing and perspectives truly demonstrating how bleak everything has become and how impossible it seems to escape, with the prison-like state of Omega's quarters unfolding gradually before us, as when we first see it, it's clearly not a cell. The brilliance of the screenplay is shining through with the disturbing ways in which Hemlock twists Omega's aspirations for Batcher to make it seem like she's just signed off on the creature's death wish, when all she sought was a chance for her to live a normal life out of captivity, which in a way is reflective of the clones, and comes back with Gregor's statement to Rex as he's dying in Rebels.
It was an honor to serve with you, Rex. It was an honor to fight with you for something that we chose.
And without question, the haunting sight of the clones looking lifeless and being stripped of blood as well as their humanity was a rather stark reminder of the Empire's brutality. Then finally, the robotic nature of all the female clones acting as the true wardens in this scenario was rather fucked up, considering they're aiding in the loss of their brothers and through Hemlock's instructions are gradually weakening these men down to the point that resistance is impossible. It all makes for such a heavy but moving episode as we're starting to see the age of the clones ending, and after creating such a connection with them over the past 15 plus years, this is a heartbreaking visual to witness. But if I had to summarise this episode in just a short sentence, it would be as such. This is a twisted piece of episodic cinema from the land of animation that draws light on the heavier topics left unexplored in Star Wars, and to be perfectly honest, carries more gravitas than an entire season of fucking Kenobi did.
No, he's got a point.
But as an opening entry for a season goes, this might not have been the most exhilarating or action-packed feature that we've come to expect from the previous 2 seasons that both delivered on the hot and heavy. However, it was a delightfully morbid experience packed with nuance, intrigue, and character work unlike most Star Wars shows currently out there, and this was a profound step forward in this portion of the timeline that has exceeded my expectations. This show, like its lead stars, has managed to evolve and become less of an Adventure of the Week style series and instead provide another strong showing from Lucasfilm's animation department that has over-delivered in terms of plot focus, character work, and stunning animation, with everything from them thus far being the strongest of Star Wars to date. But anyway, I'm gonna hop it from here. Thank you so much for stopping by, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe for more like this down the road, and until next time everyone, take care, and may the Force be with you.